Order the October 23rd, 2025 meeting of the City Plan Board. Ms. McMullen, good to have you back. You wanna start us off?
Sure. Have you all been reading the agenda statement? Would you like me to read that?
We should. We should, yeah, we
Okay.
definitely should, yeah.
Sounds good. The City of Gainesville encourages civil public speech. Disruptive behavior is not permitted during City Plan Board meetings. Please do not bring food, drinks, props, signs, posters, or similar materials into the auditorium.
That's not the same one.
We've updated, haven't we?
Don't look at the camera either.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we also do need to call attendance.
True.
So, Robert Ackerman,
I'm here.
Jamie Bell,
Here.
Tina Certain, Nicholas Hill,
Here.
Robert Murmer,
Here.
Joshua Nay,
Here.
Jason Sanchez,
Here.
Stephanie Sutton. You do have a quorum.
Oh,
Great.
Oh, Stephanie Sutton is here.
Update that.
Perfect timing. We just called attendance.
Do we have, I'll let Stephanie get settled in. I doubt this will impact the motion to adopt the agenda, but
So moved.
no worries.
Second.
Sir, we got a second? All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Kind of counted as a second there to Jinx, right?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. It's at this point in the meeting that we open up the floor to the members of the public who want to speak. We only have one item on the agenda, so if you want to speak on anything but the UF temporary parking lot special use permit, now would be your time to come up and speak. You have 3 minutes to basically talk about it. And seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Ms. McMullen, if you want to read us in the first business discussion item, please.
Sure. Item 2025-852, UF temporary parking special use permit, LD 25102, with a presentation from Nathaniel Chan.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. My name is Nathaniel Chan, planner for the City of Gainesville, Department of Sustainable Development. This is petition LD 25-000102, a special use permit for the UF temporary parking lot. I was not expecting so many people to be here, but I will go through this with clarity. So the applicant on this special use permit request is the UF Foundation, and acting on their behalf is NV5. The temporary parking lot is located on the northeast corner of Southwest 13th Street and Southwest 1st Avenue. It's approximately 1.01 acres in size and has urban 9 zoning and urban mixed use high land use. In the urban 9 zoning district, surface parking lots are only allowed as a temporary use with a special use permit. The City Plan Board approved the surface parking lot special use permit with conditions in 2018 under petition PB-18-00094. And today, the applicant is requesting a new special use permit with the expiration date set at 5 years in 2030. So section 30-5.21 of the Land Development Code outlines the use standards for surface parking lots, and you can see that first line there saying that in the U9 zoning district and the downtown zoning district, they are allowed only with a special use permit and with the following requirements A through E. I'll go through those requirements at the end of the presentation. But here is the surface parking lot. It is south of where the gas station used to be on University Avenue on that southeast corner. of 13th Street and University, and there are some of the notable properties of interest in the surrounding area. It's directly across from the UF main campus, and the parking lot is a commuter lot for UF. Here is the land use map and the zoning map. So as I said before, urban mixed use high future land use, which designates a mix of office, residential, commercial as allowable uses in that area. And urban 9 zoning as well. Again, commercial residential uses allowed in that area. So the temporary parking lot is currently there and was approved by that initial special use permit. So I'll go through a little bit of the timeline. So in 2018, that's when that special use permit was initially approved. It had 3 conditions on it. It was set to expire in 4 years instead of the 5 that is the maximum allowed by the plan board. The second condition was that it come into compliance with all the requirements. In 2018, the parking lot did not exist, of course, so at that time, there were some requirements that it met all of the development plan requirements essentially for stormwater, landscaping, things like that. And then the third comment was to just provide a trash can for like commuter parking. So in 2022, the special use permit expired. That was that 4-year term. Last year, we met with the University of Florida to discuss the future of the parking lot, and today we're here with that new special use permit request. I included this picture because I found it interesting, but you can see back in 2018 where the meeting was held, and some of our board members still being here today, so that's cool, and some of our former planners presenting on that item back in 2018. I found that meeting interesting, so I included that picture. Here is the master plan that the applicant submitted as part of the application package. There are notes that were on the side of the master plan, but I'll kind of read them out to you because it was hard to put on the slide. Just to note, so the future building that they'll put on here will meet U9 zoning requirements as allowed by U9 zoning. The build-to line or the building placement line, the landscape zone, and the sidewalk are called out. So that's on the 13th Street side. There's the sidewalk and the sort of landscape strip on that side. Those are called out on the master plan as well as on First Avenue. The existing service parking lot is to remain as is, so there aren't any proposed changes, and there are no needed improvements to that parking lot. And the future use of the site is not confirmed at this time, but would need to be consistent with U9 zoning when it does come in for a development plan review. And the existing site does meet the temporary parking lot requirements, which I'll go over with you now, as well as the special use permit review criteria. So staff reviewed the petition, and the petition meets the review criteria in the Land Development Code for special use permits outlined in 30-3.24. So in 2018, the City Plan Board found the temporary parking lot to be consistent, or the use to be consistent with the surrounding area and consistent with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. There are existing surface parking lots in the area in which this development is compatible with. Of course, future redevelopment of the site in line with U9 zoning district standards, so U9 uses, the height, density, all of that will bring the site into further compliance with the area in that it's mostly U9 in that area. Since this is an existing parking lot and not adjacent to single-family residential use, a few of these criteria don't apply, but I want to discuss the specific criteria for temporary parking lots, because I think that is more pertinent. So in 30-5.21, for use standards of surface parking lots, staff reviewed the petition and found it was consistent with the Land Development Code. So just going down the list of A through E, for criteria A, surface parking is only permitted when the surface parking is to be replaced with either building or structured parking in accordance with an approved master plan. While the master plan that they had submitted did not go through a formal application and approval process, it was reviewed by various departments, and when it is replaced by a building or structured parking, it will be reviewed at development plan review. For criteria B, surface parking lot is already paved. For criteria C, the temporary parking lot was approved at development plan review with the landscaping that's required. For D, it was found compliant with lighting standards and stormwater regulations. And then criteria E is setting that the special use permit be valid not to exceed 5 years. The city plan board may extend a special use permit approved under this section for an additional period not to exceed 5 years. If the applicant demonstrates that the development is moving forward with the approved master plan. So the applicant is proposing a new special use permit today and not an extension of the existing special use permit. With that, staff recommends approval of LD 25-000102, the UF temporary parking lot special use permit with the condition, and that condition is that per that section I just mentioned and talked through, per that section, the special use permit should expire in 5 years. And so at the 5-year mark or in October of 2030, the city plan board may extend that special use permit or this current special use permit if they demonstrate that they're moving forward with the approved master plan. I am here for any questions, and the applicant does have a presentation, and there are a couple representatives from the University of Florida for questions as well.
Great.
Thanks.
I'm just gonna put this to the board members who have flagged. Do you guys want to wait till the applicant gives her presentation, or do you want to ask now?
I would like to ask staff right now.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, you can unclick mine. I can wait for after the applicant.
All right, I'll unclick yours.
Thank you.
Dr. Murmur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Chan. So, couple questions. The previous requirements, you mentioned there was like a stormwater requirement. I'm sure that's already been installed, so they wouldn't need to slap that on here. The requirement that there be trash, is it a single trash can?
Yeah, so that was a condition of the original special use permit. My understanding is that's been added.
That's been,
Added, yeah.
so, but under this current, if we accept staff's recommendation as is, could they theoretically remove that trash can?
No, there aren't any, I guess, no, I guess not.
They would not be allowed to remove the trash can.
I think, I can answer that.
Yeah.
They'd still have to comply with the requirements of the code, so no, they wouldn't be able to remove it. They'd still have to provide, for area for trash.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, just to add on to Brittany's point, if that condition was speaking to like an additional trash can on top of what was required by code, then I suppose they could remove it. But if it's just meeting code requirements, then that trash can just exist.
Mr. Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chan, did you happen to review the video of the meeting when we approved this 7 years ago,
Yes.
8 years ago? Did you notice that the plan board very reluctantly approved this the first time?
Yes, I do.
Based on the assurances that this was going to be used temporarily in order to replace a surface parking lot on the university campus with a structure. Now, of course, we're 3 years past the end of and that's also, by the way, why we limited it to 4 years and not the standard 5 years. If you saw at least one of us, and that would be the white-haired guy with his back to the table, who was the chair at the time, at least one of us, me, said under no circumstances would we extend the life of this. Now, I understand that you've come up with a way to make it a new special use permit, but the effect that you've done is to extend it from a maximum of 10 years if we had wanted to extend it to 12 at a minimum and 17 years. And this is the signature corner at the University of Florida, and it's the entrance to downtown, and it's the entrance to the University of Florida. It completely violates U9 requirements. We did accommodate it once. More importantly is they have now bulldozed the property to the north and turned it into a junk storage on the corner of 13th Street and University Avenue, which, as far as I know, it has not come before this board for a special use permit. And so I guess I'm having a little hard time figuring out how staff recommends approval of this.
Yeah, I think you're correct that I did review that video and definitely agree with you that the future of one of our most prominent corners in Gainesville, being University and 13th Street, is not intended to be surface parking forever, and definitely not intended to be the lot that it is on the corner today. I think there might be some added context that might be helpful from the applicant's presentation as to why it has taken longer for them to put a building there. And I think probably everyone in this room agrees that it should not be a parking lot. Did you have something to add, Brittany? I don't
Well,
know.
let me ask one more question.
Yeah.
Apparently you've justified it on the basis of some master plan with an unknown building scheduled at some unknown time in the future. Is that accurate? We'll let the applicant answer that. You're off the hook.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Ms. Sutton.
So, I think my biggest concern with this is they were in compliance with, the section for surface parking and being temporary, and they had something underway and they could fall under E and meet those requirements, I would be okay with this. I am really afraid of the precedent that we are setting here. That someone let their special use permit expire, maintain the use, and now we're letting them start over from scratch and get even more time on a time-limited use? Like, how did we I don't know how staff got there. That, oh, well, you didn't follow the rules, so just start over. We'll let you start at square one again and get 10 more years. Like, I don't understand how we let something expire and then, like, what's the point in the timelines in the code if we aren't holding anyone to them? Like, I really don't get it. Like, why would anyone ever follow the real rules if you can just let it expire and then just do a new one? I'm really afraid of the precedent that this would set. I don't, like I said, if it was following the rules and if they were just asking for an extension, I would get it. There's been a lot of transition at the university. I get it. No big decisions have been being made lately. But I'm afraid of the precedent that we're setting here, that a time-limited SUP expired. There was a time-limited extension defined clearly in the code how they get it. They aren't following that either. And so we're just letting them go back as if like the last 7 years never happened. Just submit a new application. I don't like the precedent. So I don't know how they got to that point that, like, I mean, I guess since it was expired, they couldn't ask for an extension. They can't meet the criteria for the extension, but I have a hard time understanding how staff got to that point, and I don't think it sets a good precedent moving forward. So I don't know if someone from staff wants to give some explanation as to.
Sure. So yeah, a couple things I was gonna say is it's definitely within the board's purview to make that determination that they don't. If you all agree and vote that you don't think it meets the criteria, that's why we're here tonight. You are right that is, the reason why they did not apply for the extension and we didn't accept an extension application is because they were past the time period. So that's exactly why it's a new special use permit. And I do think the applicant's presentation probably will give more context. We have been, you know, just trying to work with them on future plans. We've met with them several times over the past couple of years. And that's kind of how this application has come to fruition tonight. So I think it's, you know, it's within your purview to decide if it's appropriate or not, if it meets the review criteria. The only option for them really was to apply for a new special use permit and not the extension. So that's how we ended up here.
That's helpful context.
And I think just for context, and I don't know, Bob or Forrest can jump in, but I believe the only other time that we've approved a temporary parking lot like this was the site that's now the McDonald's on University. So this is a really rare thing. Most of you have probably never seen this come to the plan board. Bob and I think, have only seen 2 come, and that site did develop, and it did sort of meet the standards. I mean, we had to wrestle with them on trying to make that drive-through work over multiple meetings, but they did put the building up at the street and did a very, like, one-off design to do what we wanted to make the fast food restaurant work on University. And prior to that, there had been a temporary parking approved on that site. Those are the only 2 that I'm aware of. I don't know if staff can think of any others.
To be honest, I had forgotten about the McDonald's.
So I think, you know, it's a very rare thing. I don't think that it's something in general that the city encourages, you know, parking uses on our main thoroughfares through town. And I don't like the process and the decision making that got us here.
Mr. Nay, I think I accidentally unbuttoned you on the thing. Yeah, your light was flashing before.
I mean, all this context is really helping. You know, I had some questions about because there's no context, like how long has UF owned this property? Because I can see back to 2007 on Google Maps that it's been nothing since then. It was a grass lot before. And I also noticed that the bus stop was removed. There was a bench there 2 years ago, and now that's gone. Did the city remove that, or is that something that UF removed?
It's a great question. I don't think I have the answer to that.
I'm not sure about the bus stop. We can definitely ask the applicants if they know.
The bus stop is still there.
The bus stop is there, but there's no bench.
There is no bench, yeah.
So why was that removed?
I don't think we know. We could definitely find out.
Okay.
If the transportation department had any involvement with it.
Dr. Murmur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, since the applicant has a presentation as well, I mean, I do have a concern specifically with criterion E, but since the applicant has a presentation, if it might be prudent for us to go through that whole process before we have a full-fledged.
I'll ask Mr. Hill, who's our remaining commenter.
My question is more for staff itself and members of the plan board who were there at the original hearing. Was it ever considered, if it was the board's purview or belief at that time, that no extension shall be granted? Was that ever considered as a condition?
I don't think it can be.
I mean, it's written into code that.
Yeah, I can't remember in detail. I didn't rewatch the meeting. I remember people not being crazy about this. But I don't remember if we talked about that or because it was so clearly defined, you know, and we knew that they would have to come back to us to get the extension. I don't remember.
Sean, I mean, is that something that would be allowed under at least the current code? With the way it's written now? I mean, I guess ultimately where I'm getting with that is, you know, it's expired. That's why they went through a new one, right? Could they limit themselves to an extension, saying they would not accept an extension, therefore they would keep track of it would almost be like an extension de facto, because they would limit their own extension ability to grant another extension.
Well, good evening, Sean McDermott, Assistant City Attorney. Yeah, I think this board has discretion under the applicable criteria to craft conditions when ruling on whether to issue the permit. So a condition could be, if this board, saw it so fit to rule how you may, as long as it, you can't run afoul of the criteria in the land development code, of course. But as long as it is consistent with that, you can craft reasonable conditions to implement this section. So, I mean, just for instance, you're focusing on subsection E there, where it says, well, it looks to be 2 sentences, and it says, any special use permit approved pursuant to this section shall be valid for a period not to exceed 5 years. So you see you have some discretion there, and I think that's why this board in the last go-around decided to grant the permit only for 4 years, because it doesn't run afoul of that condition, that criteria, when you can do it up to 5 years. The second sentence just says the city plan board may extend a special use permit approved under this section for an additional period. It goes on. But that sentence just says you have that ability. It doesn't say you have to. It doesn't say you, So in other words, yes, you can craft a condition accordingly in a way that, per your best judgment as a board, makes this, whatever permit you were to approve here, meet the intent of the comprehensive plan and the land development code. That's what you're here is to interpret how that's done and then rule accordingly.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious if that was explored as an option.
Yeah, additional conditions were explored as options. I think it's the desire of the applicant to not have that limitation. So I think maybe just hearing their presentation is probably better.
Absolutely.
One more, sorry. Ms. Bell.
No, I want to hear the applicant's presentation. I just wanted to answer Member Nate's question that according to a property appraiser, this property was sold to UF by the Delta Road Chapter House Association in February of 2002. So they've owned the property since February 25th, 2002.
Wow.
That's all.
Okay. That's a good bit of context. Thank you.
Thank you.
If the applicant would like to come up and give a presentation, I think we'd all very much appreciate it.
Sure, good evening. Craig Brazier with NV5. Joining me from the University of Florida is Trevor Schneider and Adam Hall. So hopefully between the three of us, we can address some of your questions and concerns. So I'll walk through this presentation. We appreciate Mr. Chan's review of our application and recommendation for approval. We hope that we can all get there with y'all tonight, because I would hope that we can all agree that parking lot is not the highest and best use for this site. We all know that, we all agree. I think we can all agree there's a very prominent location at one of, if not the most highly visible intersection in town. And I hope that we can also agree that the active use of this parking lot is better than a vacant lot sitting there at the core at a center part of town. It does create some safety enhancements with people being there, with eyes on the street, all those kind of principles, with a future unknown development, but a future development that will implement the U9 transect zone requirements. So that is the ultimate goal here. But in the meantime, I do think there are benefits, and I do think this is better than having an empty vacant lot sitting there. So hopefully y'all agree. And hopefully we can frame this too, that there were some very unique circumstances right after the fact that this got approved. One of those being that there was a global pandemic. Everything kind of shut down. Everything that was even planned got put on hold. On top of that, there have been leadership changes at the University of Florida and some master planning which changed some of the focus for new development back to the core of campus. There was actually a new UF building planned for this site. Due to some of those changes, that got moved back to the core of campus. So there have been efforts to put a new facility that implements the U9 transect zone on this site. And I think it would benefit everybody, because it is such a highly visible and important location, that the time be taken to find the right user and a right project that implements fully the transect zone, and that you're not just putting a development here to meet some ambiguous time frame associated with a special use permit. So I think we can all get to the point where we get a project that's best for the community. It's just going to take time. As we all know here in dealing with development, if there was a project ready to go today, it's 3 to 4 years to design, permit, construct a new project. So right away, you're pushing the limits of a special use permit if that project was ready to go today. So obviously, there again, to get to a project that we all can appreciate and be proud of, that is what the extra time is needed, and that's what we're asking for as part of this application. We did hold a neighborhood workshop, mailed out approximately 90 notifications, posted the site with notification. 3 people attended the workshop. And, I think the sentiment that we heard was, it's, not the best use for the site. Again, we all agree. It is a temporary bridge to a permanent development. This is the project timeline that we are following for this application. We met back in June, held the neighborhood workshop in July, August. We made our submittal, staff review, and then of course we're here tonight. One of the questions that was asked about the trash can. So the parking lot that is there today was designed, site plans were reviewed and permitted by the city, Water Management District, DEP, GRU. The site plan went through all the normal development review, so the trash can would have been required and is included in these site plans, so it is still required. The site must still abide by these site plans. So that is not something that can change. So again, I think we all are familiar with the location. Like I said, probably the most prominent intersection in town, right across the street from the University of Florida's main campus, surrounded by university, student housing, Publix, some very recent developments. As far as to address the bench and the bus stop, I don't know exactly, but I would say possibility with so much new development occurring around the site. Coordination is always occurring with RTS, so new transit facilities, nicer than maybe an uncovered bench, have been incorporated into those other projects, so they may have shifted the focus towards those bus stops. That's just an educated guess. I don't know that for a fact. Here are some pictures of the parking lot today. Again, this is designed, permitted by the city, so it's landscape. The stormwater is in place, which is typically an improvement over undeveloped sites, such as a vacant lot. There could have been issues with flooding. Stormwater typically takes care of that. There's a few different views. So it's not just an unpaved type parking situation. There again, this is an enhanced and improved site. Here's some details about the parking lot itself. So there again, these met all the development review criteria for the temporary parking lot as outlined by Mr. Chan. These are some of the specific standards. Sidewalks were enhanced. And again, as development moves forward, it will be consistent with the U9 requirements and further implement the transect zone enhancements. Again, this is just emphasizing its location, and there again, while it is not the highest and best use, it does serve a function to both the surrounding area as well as the University of Florida, which I do believe is better than a vacant lot. And you can't really control the time frame at which a project comes along that suits, you can't force development. So I understand some frustration. I don't think anybody here is intentionally trying to push the limits of special use permits or the deadlines applied by those. But there again, there were some unique circumstances right after approval of this original application, and I do think that should be taken into consideration. And I do think starting again with a new special use permit gives you the opportunity to make some conditions and address it, and hopefully allow the University of Florida to find a suitable building or tenant or project for this site. So with that, I think staff did a good job of outlining the consistency with the comp plan and land development code in their staff report. Similarly, we provided that information in our application, our justification reports. All that is included in the backup and in the record. But if you have more specific questions about that, we'll be happy to address that. Staff did recommend approval we are asking you to agree with your professional staff. We will help you in any way, kind of find understanding and, you know, support for this. Just let us know what questions you have or concerns. So with that, turn it back over to the board, and we'll be happy to continue the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for all that context. As you might guess, there are quite a few questions from the board. I have one I want to start out with, though, which is I'm trying to understand the timeline. Approved in a special use permit, 4 years, approved in 2018, lapses in 2022. 3 years pass for the University of Florida, mind you, not some small developer individual who doesn't know the process, doesn't have the money to go through the process or the time. The University of Florida is, by my estimation, probably the best equipped to navigate city processes in the entire city of Gainesville. Probably more equipped than the city of Gainesville itself. And yet it's still a parking lot. I actually was over there on Wednesday because I wanted to see it, and it doesn't look very temporary to me. It looks like y'all planned it to be a parking lot for quite some time. What happened there? Why is there this gap where the special use permits lapse and it takes 3 years to apply for a new one? I know that there's been turmoil at the University of Florida. I know there was a COVID, great. I understand that as an excuse for not building a building.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a new special use permit or trying to go through that process, I mean, there's no way you're going to use COVID as an excuse for that. That's not a valid thing. Also, it lapsed in 2022. So by that point, while people are still dealing with the effects of the pandemic, most of at least the city of Gainesville had already kind of moved on from that. So my question is, what happened in that period of time?
I mean, I don't have the exact answer there. I'm not an employee at the University of Florida, but I will say that, you can't look at any one of those special circumstances individually. You have to look at them as kind of a holistic, special set of circumstances that occurred following the approval of that site. So, 4 years time frame, half of that was completely occupied by development shutdown.
Oh, I get that. I mean, like, just simply trying to reapply or applying for an extension or trying to reapply. I mean, I get not putting up a building. I understand that. I know how development works. I know that takes time.
Sure.
What doesn't take quite as much time is getting another special use permit. So why the delay? Meanwhile, that property has been used in violation of the original special use permit now for 3 years, 3+ years.
And there again, I don't know if the city issued any type of notice of violation, or, if not, they may not have even known or been aware. There again, I don't have the exact answer as to why they didn't reapply, but I mean, they are now trying to make it right through.
I mean, it's quite late. I'll turn that to our city staff members. Is there a mechanism for enforcement when a special use permit is violated?
Yes, we do have a mechanism for, the 3-year gap really, there wasn't nothing happening. At least for part of those years, I was not the director. I was working for the county, so I can't speak exactly to conversations that were had then. But there have been conversations between the city and the university about how to address this situation. And over the 3 years, we've gotten to this point.
It took 3 years to say you should apply for a special use permit that expired 3 years ago. That's funny. I won't belabor the point. I'm gonna throw it to the rest of the board because I'm sure they have a lot of questions. I'll start with Dr. Murmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a similar question, just I guess a little more precise possibly. It might be a series. Did the applicant, University of Florida Foundation, did they attempt applying for an extension prior to the expiration of the first temporary special use permit?
I don't believe so.
Do any of the representatives here from the UF Foundation know if they had sought an extension prior to?
I believe this is the first attempt, but correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is.
So they did not. So under the code, if they wanted to extend it, they did have a right to apply for an extension prior to the expiration.
Yeah,
they did not.
I believe all that was missed. Yeah.
All right. I might come back to that in a second.
Sure.
Second big questions, what are the plans are there any plans existing right now for structured parking on the parcel or a building?
Not specifically, but there again, the sites are, so the University of Florida Foundation owns the property, are actively looking and working with both the university and other potential users for the site. It is actively being marketed. There again, finding the right user, the right project doesn't always just happen immediately. But I mean, there are active uses, and I will, if Mr. Snyder wants to expound on those efforts, I mean, nobody wants to just really kind of sit and hold it and not use the property because of it is very valuable location. So I can promise you efforts are being made. The site is being marketed. Conversations are going on with the university to find a use for it. So it's not as though they're just sitting there and with intents of keeping it as a parking lot for.
So there are no existing plans to put a structured parking on the site, or, okay, then
I mean, it's an
criterion A is not met, I can't, yep,
Yeah.
simply not met.
Ms. Bell.
Thank you. Some of my questions have already been asked, like whether any similar special use permits have come through the board before, and it sounds like not really. And so there really isn't a precedent for extending or issuing new ones like this, which I agree with Member Sutton is concerning. I'm looking for a couple points of clarification. So just to for sure state, the university did not stop using this lot in the 3 years that it lapsed the permit, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And in the justification report that you submitted on page 3, it talks about by reinstating the permit, the site will remain in its current function for a period not to exceed 10 years. Are you asking for 10 more years or 10 years from the original permit issuance in 2018?
Well, I think staff has answered that we can't ask for
Sure.
10 years from the original, or an extension of the original. This is a new, it is intended to be a new.
In like your ideal fantasy world, would you have wanted 10 more years or 10 years from 2018?
The idea is that treating it like a new application.
Okay. So, not to belabor the point that other members have made about, things fall through the cracks, shit happens, I get it. But it takes a lot of chutzpah to ask for 10 more years after already letting it lapse for 3 years after you already got a slightly shortened permit because nobody wanted this to happen. So I can see why some board members might feel a little frustrated by that. And in reading through the documentation provided in the quote-unquote master plan, there is no master plan for this site. Y'all are still trying to figure it out, right? So the master plan is to figure out what we're gonna do, which is not a plan. And that's what is stuck in my craw about this application, is it'd be one thing if there were already discussions underway or options being floated, and it doesn't really seem like there's any of that, and so that's concerning as well, the vagueness of it. And so the only compromise I would throw out, kind of in response to what some other board members were saying, is that if we were to have extended the permit when it initially expired, it only would have been through 2027. So I could potentially see a scenario where we could issue a new permit, but only for 2 years through 2027, with the condition that if they come back to us with no plan for permanent use, they do not get another issuance. I don't know if that's too intense of a condition, but that's the only potential compromise I could see. Otherwise, I think there have just been too many things that have gone wrong to allow the use to continue with no plan in sight.
But the issue
So that's
with that
my
is,
2 cents.
I mean, I see the point of the compromise, but the issue with that is you've admitted that you don't think they are in compliance with that part of the code because that part of the code requires a master plan, and you admit that there is no.
I mean, they technically submitted a master plan, but the plan is to figure out the plan, which is not really a plan. Again, I get it. There's obviously been a lot of like high profile turnover at the university, and I sincerely doubt this has been on anyone's priority list for any period of time. So like, I get it from a realistic, pragmatic, like business perspective. You're here now trying to clean up the mess. But I would like to see a little more effort or clarity, or even potentially table it and say, come back in a month or two and show us more of a plan, because without a plan, you are not in accordance with the rule, and therefore we couldn't issue this in good faith. And so that may be another option, is to like, hey, you know what, try again. We'll see you in a month or two. That's another thinking out loud idea for the rest of y'all to discuss. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ackerman.
Mr. Rusher,
Yes, sir.
I hope you're getting paid a lot. You're attempting to turn temporary into permanent, or for all intents and purposes, 10, 15, 17 years is permanent. I mean, you know, generations of students will have come and gone, and that signature section will just be sitting there. Also, and this is just an aside, I thought it a weird justification. First, let me compliment you. I have never heard such accolades for a surface parking lot before. Really, I mean, it's a wonder we just don't have the whole city in surface parking lots. And of course, the reason you put in stormwater is because you paved the whole thing with a hard surface. You had to. The vacant lot would have been okay. Anyway, and I don't mean to poke fun at you. You've been here a lot, and I appreciate you most of the time. Anyway, I guess my problem with this, one of your justifications was, you know, the university's in turmoil. Yeah, we got that. One of the things is you've redeployed, the university's redeployed and decided they don't want to interact with the city anymore. Well, I'm not sure we owe you an extra special use permit in violation when you guys have decided to pull in and go back to treating like you live on an island. This is really an important piece of property.
absolutely.
And of course, you haven't even mentioned the property next door, which you've turned into a junkyard. So you've kind of extended this, you know, beautiful main thing into something even worse. And as far as I know, you're in violation with that. That doesn't sound like something we want to work with you on. And I'm willing to extend it a little bit, but let me ask you this.
Sure.
When you came, you said you wanted to build a parking structure, replace that surface parking lot at the University of Florida with a parking structure. Did you ever do that?
There again, there have been changes in the shifts of development and new development as master planning efforts did take place since that time, and focus has been put back on the core of the university. So I do understand, well, once again, I understand the frustration. I can assure you through our relationship, through our professional dealings with the University of Florida, they are trying to make things right. This is our first step. This is the application to make things right. It does take time to get a project that everyone will be happy about there. And I do feel, even though it is a surface parking lot, the active use there is better than it being a vacant, unused lot. I really do believe that.
I appreciate
I
your
really
love
do
of
believe that, though.
your love of surface parking lots. And as surface parking lots go, you know,
Yeah.
it's not bad. It's got some shrubs. But that's not where that's supposed to be. It explicitly is prohibited in a U9 classification.
It's allowed by special permit.
It is, and we did, and you.
And it lapsed.
And it lapsed, and now you want to extend it another 10 years. Temporary is not 17 years long. At least it isn't in my view. I don't have 17 years. So I can't even imagine, and I would love to hear something is planned for the corner, because the surface parking lot's pretty damn ugly, but an unpaved junk with a hurricane fence, a new hurricane fence around it, is even worse. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a less walkable feature than a blank fence, and if you peek through, you just see a dusty lot with storage containers.
I believe that's an untaxed.
Anyway,
dusty lot.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think you've done anything that would persuade me even to accommodate Janie, because
And I
it
mean,
sounds like
we
there's gonna be
definitely-
no accommodation from the University of Florida.
We definitely understand the tenor of the board. I would like to hear and continue the discussion till everyone's made their comments or had their questions. We will likely ask for a continuance, but I would like for the conversation to continue if there is anything else. We definitely want to hear all concerns. We definitely want to hear all questions so that we can find a way, continue working with staff to see if there's a possibility to address those things. So,
There's
definitely see
more
where, I
questions.
definitely see where it's headed, but I
Yeah.
definitely want the conversation and the questions to continue so that we can make sure we get everything out on the table.
And I just want to remind, I saw a couple of hands go up. There's going to be time for public comment. And so at that point, if you want to come up and talk about this issue, you're definitely more than welcome to. But in the meantime, the board still has more questions. We have a lot of questions tonight. You guys picked a good one to come to because this is livelier than I thought it was going to be. Dr. Murmur.
This might be quick, given something you just mentioned. So question, if you were to ask for a continuance, what would be the plan for the use of the parking lot?
That
in the
is a
meantime?
conversation that I think the University of Florida has to have internally, and we have to come up with a real, more concrete idea for you.
Oh, yeah, no, so
Maybe
yeah,
for the time being.
for the time being.
I'm sorry.
So I guess this might be a
I
better
don't
question
understand
for
the
the
question.
city attorney.
Like, are you gonna stop using the parking lot while we wait to resolve this?
I mean, that's a.
More
that's-
accurately, might be a better question for the attorney. Are we allowed to prohibit the use of the parking lot as a parking lot in the interim if we grant a continuance?
Well, I think I think that's up for the city's code enforcement department to determine. Like anytime there's any regulations in the city in place, including a special use permit, if those are not being complied with, or if a use is being, currently being used that's not in accordance with a special use permit because it's expired or whatnot, that's an issue for code enforcement. And there's a lot that goes into code enforcement with their prosecutorial discretion and what they choose to do and do not do. So, but yeah, ultimately the city can enforce a use of a property that's not in accordance with code or special use permit if that was required. So.
Thank you. Very glad to have you here. If you wanted a continuance, how long would you expect?
I would say we would at least ask for 60 days.
At least 60 days?
I think that's a minimum amount of time to have those discussions, come
Yeah.
back with a.
All right. So I think this board should show some mercy, even though they have not kept to the original agreement. And after public comment, I'd be willing to, if there's appetite for it, move to continue the meeting.
We'll keep that under advisement. Thank you, Dr. Murmur. Mr. Ackerman.
I would love to have you come up with some great concept, but if in fact your temporary is permanent, indefinitely permanent, I would suggest what the owners of the property at the Standard did when they could not come up with a building, which is at least transform it into a cleaned up green space for the duration. And then if we have 15 years, I mean, we can't force you to build something, but we certainly are not obligated to let you turn it into something that looks like Hialeah. It's nothing but dusty parking lots on the signature corner of the University of Florida. But if you wouldn't mind at least bringing that up.
Ms. Bell.
I think I would just add as a note of caution that based on the narrative presented in the report, the justification report, it was previously a vacant lot, and that vacant lot was used for like overflow parking for UF events and such anyway. So therein lies the rub, is if we tell them they can't use it as a parking lot as it is now, they may turn it into a vacant lot or a grassed area, and then like they have their special permission on game days to let anyone park anywhere, that may end up happening anyway. So would that be an improvement, which I think is what the gentleman continues to reiterate with his love for service parking. It's better than a nothing that gets destroyed by temporary, super temporary uses on the weekends. So just a note of caution there.
Shouldn't regulate anything because somebody might use it for a worse purpose. So.
The one thing I do want the board to keep in mind as we're thinking about how we're going to move forward with this is that the applicant has already shown that they cannot stick to a special use permit. I happen to think that special use permits are sort of built out of trust. We are giving you this permit to do something extraordinary that we normally would not be allowed to do on this piece of land. We're trusting that you're going to stick to that. Now the city, I can't speak to code enforcement except to say, I think it's a little strange that the most prominent corner in the entirety of Gainesville seemingly had no code enforcement. That's a little strange, but I think that asking for a new special use permit is built on the trust that you're going to adhere to it. We could say no today, and I think that parking lot would still be there. I think the University of Florida will continue to run it as a parking lot. They'd run it for another year, 2 years, until somebody from the city got enough guts to go in and say to the University of Florida, hey, you can't do this. You're not permitted. This expired 5 years ago by that point, right? And so I think the thing I haven't heard from the applicant is, hey, here are reasons why you should trust us to actually stick to this new special use permit. And if the applicant can give those reasons, then I think I might feel more comfortable supporting them in this endeavor to keep surface parking for 5 more years in that area. But I haven't heard it yet. And so I'm extending the invitation. I know we've got some folks from the university in the crowd. If you can convince us to trust you guys, have at it, because that is your best way forward on this. So far, it's not looking good.
Point.
Absolutely. And consult the definition of temporary.
Good evening. I'm Trevor Schneider. I'm the AVP of Real Estate for the University of Florida. And it's a pleasure to be here. I understand your frustration. On behalf of the university, I apologize. For us to let this lapse was a huge oversight on our part. From the university's perspective, parking is really a luxury that we don't have on campus, believe it or not. With the growth that we've experienced over the years, parking is at a minimum. This lot is really important for us, even on a temporary basis, to have the parking to accommodate the activities that's going on campus. I think right now we've got close to $2 billion worth of construction going on campus right now, and it's interrupted surface parking on campus. Hence the need for the construction laydown lot temporarily during this time. I can say that this property is extremely important to us. It is a gateway to the university. We have a one chance opportunity to do something truly special there. Really impactful to the city, to the university. As you know, several years ago, we completed a strategic development plan. Craig kind of touched on that briefly, and that plan called for more density on the east side of campus. That does impact this site. Our development vision would align with that strategic development plan that would include high-density development on the site. Elkis Manfredi was an architect, a consultant that helped us during that process. You may have seen some test fits that he had completed that showed some plans for the site. It included various densities from 150,000 square feet on up to 300,000 square feet, 5 stories to 7 stories. That's what we envision to do on this site, something special. We do see it as a gateway to the university. It's at the front door. We want to do things appropriately and do something special for that. And that does involve planning. There has been planning along the way that's been hampered by leadership transition. We had some momentum going with Dr. Sass when he was the president, but as you know, he was there 17 months. And now we're in another transitionary period where really firm plans will not be completed until we have a new president at the helm. But right now, I can tell you our vision is to do something of high density. It'd be, vertically integrated mixed-use development that would include both properties, about 1.8 acres in total. That would go all the way up to the corner. It has been a disappointment not doing anything sooner. I've been involved with this site since I've been at the university since 2019. I want to see something be done there. It is an eyesore seeing the construction laydown lot. It's something that is really critical to the construction that's going on campus today. But we do, in the near future, see hard plans for that site. I'm open to questions that you may have that I may be able to answer.
I have a technical question, which is how many parking spaces are on that site currently? Do you know?
I don't know exactly.
It's in the
It's in 99. And these are gold, right? It's the most expensive of the permits. As I'm on the UF site, to get a gold permit, it's a little over $1,500 a year. So the university is, it's not like a huge amount of money for UF, but seeing as how you pay nothing in property taxes to a state university, it's not nothing.
It
Seems like
is.
a strong incentive to keep it as a parking lot for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that would not be the intent of the university. It's, of course, desperately needed. It's part of our long-term plans. If you've seen the landscaping plan and some of the plans that involve some construction near Tigert Hall, that will impact some of the parking there.
Okay, other members of the board have questions? Dr. Murmer?
No, this is, I was just queuing up because I'd like to make a motion right after public comment.
Okay. Ms. Bell?
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. My thoughts are that, in I think accordance to Dr. Murmer, what he's planning to do is to suggest a continuance for 60 to 90 days. And what I would personally like to see, and obviously you can't lock anything in that short period of time, but I would like to see a plan that includes like scope, schedule, budget for developing a plan for this site. So, are you able to allocate any funding to the planning process for this site? Are you able to come up with a schedule for a period of time in which you would like to come up with a plan for this site? And what are some milestones that can be set in place for us to have the reassurance that you are moving along with that plan? And if at the end of whatever time period you deem is appropriate to come up with a plan for the site, if nothing has come from that, we would like a suggestion of what should happen to the site. Because I think that if you came back to us with a real plan for coming up with an idea, some folks could probably be talked into an extension or a new special use permit, whatever we're calling it. But we would be real disappointed if that went nowhere. And I think there would be a lot of strong feelings about making sure this site's never used for parking ever again. And so that's what I'm thinking, is that if we gave them a little bit of time to come to us with something concrete, I would be open to a new, very strictly watched special use permit to see what would happen. So those are my thoughts.
If there are no other questions from the board, thank you so much, by the way, for
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. We'll open it up to public comment. Any members of the public that want to come up and speak on this issue, just come right to the podium here in the microphone. Introduce yourself, please, for the record, and you have 3 minutes to talk once you get up there. By all means, you can.
We'll be nicer to you.
Oh, we're generally a nice bunch.
Hi, Hi, I'm Christoph Tank, and I am a resident of College Manor, specifically the studio apartments that are also facing towards said parking lot and said trash dump thing that's like right next to it. What are my main concern? I think I have two. My first main concern is that if there'd be like any thoroughway traffic through like First Avenue or even Alligator Alley, because I know both of those places are very narrow roads, and if like the parking lot were ever be used for like say a big event or a special event or whatnot, and if it were like be anything used for that and the entire parking space gets filled up, because what I've seen is it's not being used by that many cars right now, but if it were ever be used for that case, I'm worried of like giant thoroughfare traffic through what it's already a very busy area would end up affecting say other parking at College Manor, because or like even like other developments like the Hilton Resort that's on University Avenue. And my second concern about it is more so like the lack of a master plan, to be honest, because like I don't know exactly what's going to be happening there. If because like right now the eyesight I can see out through the front doors, because they're glass windows, they're glass doors, is pretty like I can see like University Avenue. I can see like not University Avenue. I can see like the university. I can see like other residential areas. I'm afraid that like a big development would affect that sky, like that view. I'm on the second floor, so maybe it wouldn't affect people on like say the third or fourth floor. But I know from like second floor, it's like I can see like a pretty fair amount distance, and I don't know if like say a building there. Because that's what I'm assuming UF is trying to do there, and not just keep it as a parking lot. If they're being truthful with that, is like they're planning on putting like maybe a building there, and I don't know if like a building there would affect, say, the view from College Manor as well as say the view from the corner itself.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
If there are any other members of the public, you can just come up. Just state your name for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, I'm Kirilo Sokolov. I'm a UF student. I live in Honors Village on campus. Just have a comment about this parking. I was one of those 3 people on that summer online presentation that mentioned previously. Yeah, I spoke out against this parking lot there as well. Going to this meeting, I walked past the surface parking and the fenced-off junkyard as well. It was not nice. Having a vacant piece of land is actually much better than surface parking. Yeah, first off, it will signal that it's open for real development, like housing, stores, cafes, restaurants, or like a park will be nice. And if you're really out of ideas, look at the pedestrian underground crossing on the 13th Street. Like the canvas, i.e. asphalt, is already there. We can paint the largest rainbow in Florida on it. Yeah. I don't like surface parkings. They are like ugly, and we can definitely do better with the city center than a huge surface parking. UF students aren't exactly driving. Like maybe some are that live off campus, but like we don't need to encourage that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. If there's anybody else that'd like to come and speak about this issue, that podium is so empty. It's like beckoning people to speak. If not, we'll bring stuff back to the board for more discussion and maybe even a motion. Somebody's got a motion. Somebody does have a motion. Dr. Murmur, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm a little concerned with the UF representative's response. I felt like, I don't know, it wasn't really adequate. So I'm feeling a little bit more sour on the idea after hearing that response. I didn't get any sense that there were any real concrete plans to move forward.
Not even a concept of a plan, perhaps?
Not even the concept of a plan. So given that, I move to deny petition LD 25-000102 special use permit on the basis that the proposal is not in accordance with section 30-521 subsection A, that criterion of the city code.
We have a comment and a question, or a question. Ms. Bell, I'm gonna get to you in just a second. I do have a question for city staff. Before we go forward with the motion, if we were to, and maybe this is the city attorney's office too, if we were to deny this, what is the enforcement mechanism from the city that would enforce this? Because I do, like I said earlier, I do think, well, if we deny it, it's just gonna be a parking lot anyway. So what does the city do to ensure that having this process has weight behind it?
That is a good question. If only I knew the code enforcement guy. No, but that's actually in my directorship also. So we would treat it like any other use on any other property where it was a use that was not allowed by code. And then we could proceed through an enforcement action. Now, as the attorney spoke to earlier, city staff have a fair amount of discretion for what that action means and how to move forward through the enforcement process. As I mentioned earlier today too, it's technically part of an enforcement process that even led us here today to have the conversation. So we do have a fair amount of discretion in that. It is unclear at this point what enforcement real action would look like when it's a local jurisdiction, a local municipality, possibly taking action against a state entity.
And there, I thought the applicant was the University of Florida Foundation.
Yes.
That's not a state entity. That's technically a private sector nonprofit. It's a direct support organization.
Thank you for that, the context, Dr. Miller. It's very important to know.
And if I can also add to that, that finding that this is deficient for A here, staff disagrees with that. The requirements for a master plan are very, very basic. And the master plan that has been presented and approved meet those requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Appleton. Ms. Bell.
Yeah, I disagree with the motion, and I would ask Dr. Murmur to either take it back or for y'all to not second it, because they didn't have to be here asking for this new permit. I mean, based on how the last 3 years have gone, they could have just kept kicking the can down the road and not doing anything, and they chose to be here, and I think that they've gotten a lot of valuable feedback from the board, and I think that it would be in everyone's best interest to give them one last opportunity to come back to us with a plan, and at that time, if they don't have a plan that you deem sufficient, you can deny it at that point. But I think that it would be rash to just go ahead and deny it today. So, thanks.
Thank you for that. Mr. Nang.
Yeah, I'm ready to second the motion. I'm going to be honest about, UF and its relationship with the city and transportation. They're defunding RTS. They're doing these things, and they think this 100 space lot is super precious, right? Like, we know this is a dense area. They should be funding more buses, more other modes of transportation through that area, and not thinking that 100 space lot is super precious, because they've built parking, across the street, between Peabody and Tigard. I mean, they built a building there where they had parking. Like, it's not that precious. You just have to have other ways for people to get to places, but they don't want to do that anymore. So I don't think they're really being honest, and I'm ready to second the motion.
If I could
That's a
offer-
second.
If I could offer some additional information,
Yes,
I think
please.
something that could be provided that may help with the intent is to show some of the internal master planning documents that show proposed development in the core, in and around the university on other university affiliated properties. I think that could go a long way with helping demonstrate that there is true intent. And as I mentioned before, there was a building plan for this site that did get changed and moved back to the core of the campus area. So it's not that there haven't been any efforts made. So I don't want that to be the misconception or that to be the narrative that's put out here as a result of it.
I don't really want to keep going. I'm sorry.
But I do
going back and
think,
forth.
I do think that additional information can be provided to show that there has been intent.
But they've owned the property for 23 years.
Understood.
This has been a long time.
But it was vacant for
Right,
a long
it was a
time.
grass lot,
Right.
but they still used it. They could have had, they had 23 years to come up with a plan. Or they could have sold it to somebody else that would have done something with it. There's plenty of other development up and down 13th Street and University by other people.
Even if they sold it to somebody who didn't do anything with it, it would be generating property tax for Alachua County.
Yes.
But they did come up with a plan in 2018 when they got a special use permit for temporary parking while they designed the building. And then the plan changed because administration's changed 4 times.
We do have a motion in a second.
We do. We have one more comment. I'm going to get to, and then we'll vote on the motion.
Obviously, before it goes to a vote, I'd like a chance to speak again.
Okay. Ms. Sutton.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo my earlier comments that I have a real problem with this process setting a bad precedent. Our code has really clear timelines for this use. Even, and we're really clear that it's temporary and you have to apply for a time-limited special use permit with one possible extension. And it just seems like the fact that we would let the same applicant apply for the same thing and start over just seems to throw that out the window. Like, what good are any time limits in the code if someone can just let it expire and start over at the beginning and forget about that? I could even maybe see it if it was like a different applicant, like it had changed hands. I have a really hard time with going against the intent of the code. I have a really hard time with the process here. I understand the university issues. I have a really hard time. I mean, this is just in direct conflict with the intent of the code. So it's hard for me to believe that staff is, I mean, if we do this for this part of the code, what weight does anything else hold? If there's always going to be a workaround. This is completely a workaround to following the rules.
Yeah.
That's my problem with this application, the way that it's submitted.
Mr. Chair,
I can't get over that.
I call the question. That means we vote.
All right.
Well, then I would like the opportunity to withdraw the application. And I would look to your attorney to let me know if if this is the time and place to do that.
I think a withdrawal of the application is appropriate. This application is before you because of an applicant that has submitted the appropriate fees and documents and whatnot. And I think the board has asked a variety of very good questions, including what does that even mean if they were to withdraw their application and you just have a use that's not in accordance with the code in the respect that there's not a valid and effective special use permit that governs that property. So, yes, I think it's appropriate for the developer here to withdraw the application, and then, and I think there's that. And then I will just say the last, my 2 cents is, a lot of good questions were raised about this particular section of the code that's not often used. I remember years and years ago when I think this was either added or tweaked, that there was some discussion about the policy behind it. And this is a policy advising board to the commission. So to the extent that, you have any enlightened thoughts about this section and with the ways it can be improved, or maybe you think it's fine as it is, it just strikes me as, just from a land use and policy standpoint, if everybody agrees that they want to have, this is just a dumb analogy, but want to have a good meal, but you open the fridge and the only choices are like a wilted piece of lettuce and a mushy brown banana, and and maybe there's a third if it's construction staging is another option, so there's like all these bad options, and so I don't know if this policy, from a policy standpoint, whether there's any improvements to this. That's maybe something to think about for this board in the future, but Yeah, but I think that answers that question for now.
I guess it might.
You're now
You might
nothing
need
but
to do a text
questions after
amendment,
that.
Craig.
I'm not sure about that one.
Analogies they're never perfect, so just take that with a grain of salt.
So you're withdrawing your application, is that?
Based
Correct.
on the motion and the second, my reading of the dais, I think that is in the best interest of our application. So yeah, at this time, we'll withdraw the application. We'll reassess, come back with a different plan, demonstrate the master planning efforts. I do wish you'd reconsider and give us the opportunity to do that within the next 60 days. But if that is not the desire, if that's not the direction that this board wants to go in, then we'll withdraw and we'll just start the process over.
Okay.
Okay.
So if no one, if you're
Doesn't
not
seem like
willing
there's
to amend,
appetite on
yeah.
the board for Ms. Sutton.
I mean, the only thing I would say, it's obviously your choice what direction you go.
Mhm.
If there's an advantage to withdrawing versus, likely having it denied. If you did want to come back in the next 60 days with something different and you had someone on the majority of that vote that brought it up and got people to agree to reconsider the item, I think we can do that. We've had some conversation about that lately. But if you withdraw the application, you don't have that choice. You kind of have to start over with a new application, I think. So that's just something to consider. It's something that has come up lately with another item. Whether we would have votes to bring it up for reconsideration and a revote with new information later. It didn't work when it was attempted, but there is a process to do that.
Right.
But we have to take a vote on it. So you'd be starting from scratch if you withdraw your application, I think.
And the rule is you would have to ask for reconsideration at the next meeting of the board. That's just Robert's Rules of Order.
With or without the information.
Well, you just ask to add, I mean, that's the rule that she's citing is that if we voted to deny,
Understood.
you could get somebody who voted to deny to ask for reconsideration, but it has to be the immediate next opportunity for the board to vote.
And the next board.
Well, that, in our
Actually,
case,
like
that
the
would be in
big
December.
December.
Language here for the withdrawal.
December, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
there is language about the effect of denial or withdrawal for the special use permit process. And so I'll just read it here. No application for a special use permit may be submitted within 2 years after the date of denial or withdrawal of a request for the same use for the same property. So I think we would be asking about doing a continuance, asking about coming back with more information to this board, but not a technical withdrawal.
Okay.
And additionally, just since we're talking about all the options here, what is the process for appeal?
Hearing board,
Is that the city commission?
no,
No.
It's a separate entity.
it's the
It's
administrative
magistrate.
department.
It's the Division of Administrative Hearings, and there's an appeal procedure that's laid out in the Land Development Code for how that works.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And there is just the extra line here too, just so that you all are also aware of it. The second sentence of this is that the city plan board may waive the time limitation by the affirmative vote of 5 members, provided 30 calendar days have elapsed.
Okay.
Light at the end of the tunnel,
So the 2 years can be,
waived.
Can be
Waived.
waived, can be shortened. It's almost like the choice between a parking lot and an empty lot, huh? Good choices there. Ms. Bell.
I know there's been a motion and a second and a call to question, and so we have to vote unless he withdraws, but I just what do you guys think is gonna happen if they suddenly can't use this? Do you think it's gonna be better over the next 2 years during the denial and withdrawal waiting period if you don't have 5 votes to waive that time period?
In a
There-
quasi judicial proceeding, I'm not sure that that is a relevant consideration, A, and B.
No, I'm asking- I'm
If it were,
asking
and I'm answering, and if it were relevant, I would say, well, then why enforce any part of any code? Why have laws at all?
I'm asking you as a member of this board, who I normally am very well aligned with, like, what do you think is going to happen if they suddenly stop using and stop maintaining this gateway property to the university? It's not going to be a higher and better use of what it is now, whereas instead they've apologized and they've said that they could come back to us in 60 days, which is a pretty tight turnaround for such a large organization to come up with a plan for a property like that. And then speaking of setting a precedent, it's a 0.57 acre lot for a special use permit that's been issued twice in the history of the brains on this board. So, like, I don't think precedent's that intense of a concern. I'm just not seeing what y'all think is going to come.
And that's
for the
fine.
better
We disagree. I'm charged with reviewing the criteria and seeing if the proposal meets the criteria. And there is at least one criterion that I find it does not meet.
Which one?
Criterion A.
But staff explicitly has disagreed with you and said that actually.
And that's
it
fine.
does
Well, then
meet
why
it.
do we exist at all? Why not just have staff be the plan board?
I'm just,
And I would add, the petitioner has extended their property to include a junkyard on the corner of 13th and University.
It's a construction laydown yard for $2 million worth of construction happening within core canvas during master planning changes. I think that's an understandable
So we get to
thing.
do that wherever we want?
No, but I think it's a reasonable modification in a relatively short period of time as administrative policies change. I mean, if you've worked in construction or engineering, you need a laydown yard, and plans can change during the course of a permit. Like, yeah, I think it's.
Thanks, I got it.
Question for you, Mr. McDermott. The consideration of a adjacent property, as Mr. Ackerman has brought up, it's been brought up by multiple members of the board, which is that property on 13th University, old Kangaroo gas station lot that's now being used to store all manner of things. Is that relevant for? I mean, I guess I want to ask from like a legal standpoint, since this is a quasi-judicial process. Does that have any bearing on this property, which is a separate parcel?
Well, you would have to articulate how you think it would be relevant. I can't tell you.
I know Bob has. I'm just.
I mean,
from a procedural standpoint, I just want to know, like,
you would have to be able to draw it to
Technically meets the rules.
the specific criteria that you have to
But I'm asking them to
abide by in making your decision.
Okay, guys, please.
So
It's not permitted at all.
What I'm just saying is, like, the special use permit application that's before you, there's criteria articulated in the land development code for that you need to stick to in making your decision. There's
Right.
discretion, and of course that's why you're a board, is because there's discretion on how to interpret those criteria and apply them. But you have to stick to the criteria. So if you would have to somehow find a way that was relevant to this. But if it's not, it's not. So. You would have to draw it back to a criteria, and I haven't heard that articulated yet, exactly how that connection was made.
Mr. Chair, I would volunteer that one of the problems that's an issue here is that this special use permit has been in violation for the last 3 years. And they have now extended a violation to the adjacent property that they own without any color of seeking approval for it or any process that's going to make it better. It strikes me that, they want us to trust us on this one, but we got one right next door that's a complete outlaw.
And I will say though, for my motion, just I do not see a plan here for this one parcel, so I'm not considering the former Kangaroo next door.
Okay.
I just do not. Given the evidence presented, I do not see that there is a plan to put a structured parking or a building on the site, which is the only reason I made that motion.
Okay, thank you. Right. I wanted to be clear that we're sticking to our thoughts on this particular parcel versus any adjacent ones. Okay.
So I would, again, like to interject, after further discussion, and I appreciate the clarification on the connection or the similarities between withdrawal and denial. So with all that in place, we were not going to withdraw the application. We will let you continue, vote as you will, and we'll proceed from there.
Okay, thank you.
I call the questions, so both Bob's and Talbot.
Both Bobs, yeah, I can't deny two Bobs.
And let's, before a vote, let me just speak to, if you can just, because for denials, this is important in a quasi judicial hearing, but if you can clearly articulate the bases and the criteria that you're using that have been failed, that the applicant failed to meet, by which you are denying the application, that would be important for any appeal.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were. Oh. Yes, so section 30-5.21 of the city code, subsection A, surface parking shall be permitted only when the surface parking will be replaced with either a building or structured parking in accordance with an approved master plan. I did not hear any evidence today that there are any concrete proposals or any substantive proposals for a structured parking facility or a building to be placed on that, on the subject parcel.
Would you mind also adding the criterion E? Because I think that's a key consideration, the time limits. That's my big concern here, is that they're trying to get around the time limits.
So,
and I worry that that sets a bad precedent.
so I understand that, but given that this is a brand new application, I don't think E would apply because E says.
I think it says you can get one special use permit and one extension, and now they're trying to get a second special use permit. E does not let you get a second special use permit.
Let me read this really quick. Any special use, can we pull section?
It doesn't say then you can go get a second and a third.
We do have
Let me
a
just
staff
read this.
attorney here. So
Yeah,
we
I
can
just
also
want to,
defer
so everybody can see it on the board here. I think I might be able to see what you said here. Approved under this section for an additional period.
It doesn't.
Oh, it does say this, it doesn't say anything about expiration, so it does say an additional period.
It says you can get the extension if the applicant demonstrates that development in accordance with the approved master plan has commenced, and I would argue that the master plan has changed, and now there's theoretically a new master plan, and therefore would require a new special use permit, for what that's worth.
I want to ask our attorney. I'm glad you're here. This is a good one for you. So, Ms. Sutton brought up, I mean, and kind of in sort of in addition to what she brought up, I think the concern of the board, as we've repeatedly said, is that the applicant has not adhered to the previous special use permit because it expired, but yet the use continued. And I'm guessing that, does that fall under E in your reading of this?
Well,
I think it's.
let me just clarify, so my role here as a counsel for the board is I have to walk a very fine line where I can't give you my opinion of how this code should be interpreted.
Okay.
Our job to interpret it.
So that's often unsatisfying because you know,
very candor.
I do get to do that with staff,
right?
You know, when we're not in a quasi judicial hearing where we, have, discussions about how to interpret and apply the code. But here,
pass me a note. I'll pass it on.
Right. But here, in my hat as counsel to a board, yeah, the most I can do really is point you to the actual criteria.
Right.
You do your best to apply the evidence and the facts that were administered in this hearing to determine if that criteria is met or not. And then when you do that, to articulate with clarity and substance why the criteria is met or not, so that your order can be reduced to writing and ultimately be a record that is available for appeal. So so that's that. That's why I have to reiterate. Be clear with the criteria. Be clear with your points of why you would vote to deny, because that's going to be essential to be upheld in an appeal.
Yeah, so I think, and Ms. Sutton, I appreciate what you're saying here, but given that this is technically a new, now maybe the code needs to be changed in the future, so there isn't this workaround, but given that this is a new application and it's not an extension, I do not think that E would apply. So for the sake of my motion, I would still stick with A. I did not hear any convincing evidence that the parking will be replaced with the building restriction.
I can't support the motion with just that. I don't think that holds
either.
water. I don't think that holds water.
We could put it to a vote and see.
I think there's been a call to order already.
Yeah, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor of Dr. Murmer's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Nay. All right, do we have another motion? The motion does not pass as presented.
I
Ms.
can
Bell.
make a motion that we, I don't know the right words, someone have to help me, but that we continue this application for 60 days as requested by the applicant to allow them to come back with a plan that more closely meets the tenets of criteria A and to reevaluate the application at that time.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. All right, that's two motions down. Do we have a third motion? We gotta have something, guys.
So those who didn't support either motion, do you have any recommendations for an alternative motion that you think would potentially pass?
Mr. Ackerman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion. I move that we deny the petition based on the standards in 30-5-21A and E, based on the testimony today from the staff as well as from the petitioner. That's it.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I have a question about it. I have an open mind. How is this not an extension? Or how is this an extension? Or where does the extension part come in?
You get to vote no if you don't like it.
No,
I'll second that. I think it's not in conformance with the time requirements stated for this special use in a transect district.
And then the
This
E
is
the
not
5 years, so
consistent
5
with the time
years.
requirements in the code.
Including the time requirement, the 5-year and E, is that what you're saying?
I think.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think Dr.
I understand.
Miller, the reason why it's
E
not.
is my sticking point.
Yeah, it's not an extension because it lapsed, but they were in violation, and then they're bringing a new one. So in a sense, it's almost like rewarding the violation.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the 5, thank you, I see the clarification on that. All right, so
I think it's
regardless
really
of-
clear how long we allow this. If you can always come back for a new one, if you can come back forever and just keep getting new special use permits, then the time limits mean nothing. At the end of this 10 years, you just come back for another one, for another 10 years, and then another 10 years. I mean, we could go on with this forever if we don't find it in violation of E.
And it's defined.
That's my
as-
problem with this application and just the classification of it. I
And
don't
it's
like it.
defined as temporary. We're making temporary eternal.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Bell, actually, do you have?
I have a question. I have another just clarifying question about E. I'm genuinely trying to understand. So we can award a permit up to 5 years, and then we can issue one extension up to 5 years. Would you still take umbrage with this item if they requested a shorter extension that did not exceed a total of 10 years?
I would have been willing to hear arguments to that, but their application very clearly
Sure.
said they wanted 10 years and
Yes.
don't have an immediate plan. So
Understood.
I could have been convinced.
Okay, and
But that was not what the application
Sure.
was asking for.
And second clarifying question is again just to the very last sentence in E, because it talks about they can get the extension if they demonstrate that the approved master plan has commenced. But if there is now a new master plan for the site, regardless of our opinion of said master plan, would that not make it a new permit if there's a new master plan?
I don't think any commencement has occurred. I don't think they've taken any plan through any university committee. I don't think they have funding for any plan. The university does projects in a big, complicated way, and there's no evidence that this really exists as a university project. So I would argue they have not met the commencement standard.
And that's, and I just, again, that's what I would reiterate, would there not be any value in allowing them to come back in 60 days to show what internal documentation they do have to support a potential mystery plan? That's all.
I would.
We can vote, and if it's voted down, you can do yours.
I just want to make one point about that. They have an opportunity tonight to present a plan. It's the University of Florida. I have a hard time believing they're not prepared. Other people can be caught flat-footed, and maybe they can use that excuse. Not UF. I just don't buy it. They know what the criteria is. They know in order to get this, they should have a pretty ironclad sort of thing. Argument for all of them, which included, of course, showing a master plan. They had a lot of opportunities to do so tonight and did not. And so that's just why I think that's my rationale for voting no on the continuance before.
Mr. Chair, I again call the question.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah,
Okay,
two
we've
votes.
got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of Mr. Ackerman's motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Passes with 2 in opposition, which is a denial.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Next time.
Thank you very much. That concludes our business agenda, but we do have member comment, and I see Dr. Murmur, you've got a comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So during the discussion, something was brought up, and this doesn't apply just to the UF Foundation or necessarily just to UF, although it's going to be largely UF in this town. But the distinction, I think it's important to note the distinction between the University of Florida as a state entity and the DSOs, the direct support organizations, which are private sector. So I guess this is more of a question for Mr. Edelton. Does DSO property, is it treated by codes enforcement in other parts of the city as if it were just the university?
No.
Okay, so is that just the slip of the tongue when you said that?
No, I said that it remained unclear for how we would approach it.
No, seems pretty definitive.
Okay.
Okay.
So just making sure, because there's a lot of property that are owned by the DSOs. So just a general concern about code enforcement there.
Ms. Bell.
I just want to reiterate that I hear your point about UF being a very large organization, and UF Foundation is technically the owner of the property, and I really do think that like things can happen in a 0.57 acre parcel with an expired permit that code enforcement was not enforcing the code on can fall through the cracks, and I do think that's realistic based on how like divisions are set up in the university and why I was in favor of a continuance. But that being said, can staff or the attorney reiterate potential next steps to the applicant as far as appealing or waiving time periods to come back, and just can you reiterate for my edification and theirs what they could do next after a denial?
So after a denial, I mean, and this is for the applicant to figure out because I can't give them legal advice as well, but there is a process for appeal that our land development code allows for. That it gets appealed, we contract with the Division of Administrative Hearings. So if that happens, that's when I have to spring into action and defend the decision you just made tonight. It's, you know, they would put on, you know, and it's all based on whether the competent substantial evidence that was presented at this hearing supports your decision made according to the correct criteria. So it'll dig into with more detail than you probably ever would want to see, but what truly is an approved master plan, all the words, like, you know, whether the criteria subsection E applies and how that applies. And so there is that allowance, there is that availability for an appeal. And there's also, you know, the ramifications of a denial that I think Forrest read, that there's a 2-year window by which they can't reapply, and there is that provision that it can be waived by this board for good reason. The language is not in front of me, but there's, you know, not just arbitrarily, but there's like criteria in that decision as well, that's spelled out in the code. So that's really that. And in the meantime, it now operates as just a piece of property that doesn't have a special use permit approval that's applicable to it. And so therefore that allowance as a temporary surface parking lot is no longer applicable to the property.
Although that's been the case for 3 years.
Oh, correct. Yeah. And there's, you know, neighbors will say, my neighbor has had overgrown grass for 3 years, and code enforcement, you know, there's so many, that's where, you know, code enforcement is you know, it's an imperfect beast, I guess, so to speak. But,
and I would volunteer that the petitioner has one of the biggest land use companies in the city, and probably they can answer this better than we can ad hoc.
Yeah, I agree with that.
so anyway, that's kind of how it might unfold from here.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one last question. It's not have anything to do with this, and it's addressed to Mr. Edelton. So earlier this year, we were working on a whole bunch of things in the code, allowed uses. Where are we at?
We're moving through them. So you've seen changes to the daycares and libraries in some zoning districts. So we've moved through that. You've seen us present the alcohol beverage item. That one is continuing to be worked on and moving through the process. We've been asked by commission to do more research and collect more data for that. So we're working on that item too. We're working on them. They're coming forward. As you all know, we've also been asked to do lots of different things.
I'm not saying to
them.
pressure. I just kind of wanted a general update.
No, absolutely. Please keep on us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we should officially welcome back Ms. Mullen. We missed you. What a meeting to come back to. You sure you didn't want to be out till December? All right, the next meeting of the Plan Board is all the way in December 18th, 2025. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.